Pubcast for the return of the Friday night pint. It has been a while since we've done this. First one post-season, obviously, because the season only finished a couple of days ago, really. But I'm joined by a good friend of the podcast and co-host of Man Cave United, Emad, who's been on here plenty of times. And Emad, usually we say sort of a look back at the week that was and a look ahead to the weekend. But obviously there is nothing to look forward to this weekend, or maybe there is, depending on how you look at it, because United can't let us down this weekend. But I just sort of remembered there that ERIK was unveiled this week. That feels like a month ago. It has gone quick.
It does. It does feel like a month ago. It's gone pretty quick. And I know you were saying that, we've got nothing to look forward to. And, that may be a good thing because United can't let us down. But then you sort of still get the feeling that, I want to watch United play. So
that's the thing that's so often we talk about it every single day, all throughout the season, and it's one of the things we hate when United are on. We think it's the worst time of the week. They're going to let us down every single time. Here we are. We set the alarm. We can't wait for it. There's always this buzz. Even if we were in a relegation battle, we'll be criticising all the players. We'll criticise the board. We'll criticise everything about the club, and rightly so. But look, nothing more forward to the 90 minutes that ultimately disappoint us. But it's like people use it, and it's not an over-the-top analogy, but it's like a drug. We're addicted to it, and there's no cure, really.
No better way of putting it, man. It's a drug. That's exactly what it is, and the addiction is real. Like, no matter how bad we are, no matter how poor we perform, the alarm gets set every The alarm gets set every weekend for United, and surprise, surprise, they do the same thing, but we repeat the cycle again.
No, definitely. Borche here, giving you this one. I know it's a mad. Make sure you go and subscribe to the Football Capital. But obviously, good to see our good mate Ian joining us live from Perth. The time differences have sort of coincided, so good to see him, mate. Larry's looking great tonight. He sure is. Munsey here, big up, lads. Good to see you, mate. And George, as always appreciate you joining us, mate. So as I've said, it is a Friday night pint, and it's one of those ones just a little bit more casual. And sort of we'll just, if any topics come up in the live chat, feel free and we'll discuss them. Any questions or any sort of news we might forget about, feel free to throw that in the live chat. And I think there are a few, obviously, talking points. I think we'll sort of throw our Spanish hats on at the end of the podcast and sort of our love for Real Madrid in European Cup finals, because unfortunately that is probably only just over 24 hours away, a little bit over 24 hours away. And look, I'm clinging to the hope this greatest ever Liverpool side finishes the season with an FA Cup and League Cup. And that'll be something good to sort of throw back at them.
Do
you remember Manchester City won the title a couple of days ago?
Yeah, and it's still all the talk about Liverpool.
I haven't seen a photo. I genuinely, and maybe I don't go searching enough for it, but I genuinely haven't seen a photo of the trophy celebration. I don't know who's their captain. I don't know who lifted it.
All 40 of their supporters.
But it's a weird thing. Like, and look, of course, that's a little bit of banter, but I'm being genuine. I haven't seen a photo, and that's one, down to Manchester City and their club and the size, but also in terms of the way it's portrayed in the media. It has been about Liverpool. It has been about Erik ten Hag, and it's an interesting take on things. Munsey here, good to hear this, mate. I really appreciate it. I'm from the UK and love the pod. Good to have support over a bit closer to Old Trafford. I hope it's a good morning for you. You can have a morning coffee rather than morning drink. And, Football Capital here with some good advice. Obviously, it's definitely during the off-season. And Si, always good to see you, mate. But the main part of that topic before we sort of wing it and sort of talk about Real Madrid and our dislike of Liverpool is obviously the captaincy debate. You can see that on the thumbnail. And we sort of, when Erik ten Hag was announced, it was one of these things where what's the first thing he's got to do? A lot of people saying he's got to sell this player or he's got to buy this player. I think a lot of people sort of fell on the idea that potentially the biggest thing is sort out a captain, whether that be keep Harry Maguire and stand by him, say he's my captain. Okay, that's his decision, but that decision needs to be made. And I'm just thinking the week that has been under Erik ten Hag and sort of one or two sort of sound bites from the press conference, has anything changed in your, and we're going to sort of dissect all the individual candidates, not that there are many, but we'll dissect all the individuals in a little bit, but just your sort of current feelings when you see ten Hag walk through the door in his first press conference. Has anything potentially changed your mind in regards to going forward as a captaincy?
Look, I don't know about. He was always going to get grilled with these questions in regards to who his captain was going to be, and the Ronaldo questions, and about Harry Maguire, and all those sorts of things. And I think he handled himself pretty well in the presser and in the interview as well. in terms of who he's gonna, whether or not he keeps Harry Maguire captain, it's totally up to him. And you heard him in his interview. He said, or in the presser, sorry, whenever they grilled him about a certain topic, he said, "I draw the line." Like he's the one that makes that decision. I mean, he was already copped a bit of backlash for the comments he made about Maguire as a player. And you could see that through, obviously football Twitter and social media. I can only imagine the kind of backlash you'll get if he was to keep Maguire as captain. But at the same time, it's hard because, like you said, we'll discuss who the candidates are, but we don't want another event where a new signing comes in and after being at the club for 5 minutes, he's got the armband on.
Yeah, definitely. Well, just here reminded me a little bit here. Well, actually, Ten Hag has told Larry confirmed by Ramona, here we go. But in regards to new signings, okay, here we go, and a transfer-related sort of topic there. Could you see a situation? No, I can't see this happening. I don't agree with this. But you look at the situation Solskjaer found himself in, where his club captain was sold 6 months into Solskjaer's tenure, in terms of his permanent tenure. Ashley Young walks out the door and a new signing becomes captain. So now whether that was the right decision or wrong decision, at the moment it's looking the wrong decision, how it turned out. But is there a situation where Erik ten Hag brings his own player, let's say a Timber or someone like that, or another player, and does he potentially become a candidate because of how bad the other candidates are? Or is this something we've done before? No matter, even if it's a great leader who comes in, it's still not a choice. It shouldn't be that player.
I wouldn't agree if he was to bring in a new player and the armband goes to him straight away. Again, it's the wrong decision. Even if Maguire had another stellar season without the armband, it's still, he's a new signing. He's not captain material yet. You know what I mean? And if you look at the candidates we have at the moment, and they're in your thumbnail, you look at De Gea and Ronaldo. I mean, you can't look like, and we'll obviously touch on it a bit later, but they're perfect at the moment. Like, they've been at the club long enough. They understand the club. They know what the club's about. They play for the badge. They're there for the long haul, and they've been there for the long haul. And I don't see why that should change. I mean, I wouldn't agree with a new signing being made captain.
Yeah. Well, George here is saying, and it pretty much sort of sparks the debate, not sure who the captain should be. If we give it to Ronaldo, would only be captain for a season. And a lot of people think Ronaldo was a clear answer, which is maybe what I lean towards. But then the point is there made, well, it's the wrong decision if he's going to give it up in a year's time, or we're going to have the same debate. So that is why I put it on Twitter a little bit earlier. I really enjoyed this debate.
Why don't we have like a captain's group, like a leadership group? I mean, because I do remember, even towards the end of Fergie's era, the captain's armband was being shared around it quite a fair bit in the last few seasons.
But I think, and look, I agree, but you just have to look around the dressing room there in terms of, there was now at the moment, let's say everyone wants Ronaldo as captain. Let's say that's the clear answer. Well, no one wants Maguire, no one wants Bruno, no one wants De Gea, and you can flip that whatever way you want. Back in that dressing room, okay, if Ryan Giggs wasn't captain, no one had an issue with Gary Neville being captain. No one had an issue with Rio Ferdinand being captain. Now there would be an issue if the next person in line is captain material. Everyone would have an issue with that, and I just think that sadly sort of stems in terms of the state of the dressing room, because you could run through the team, and even the players who probably never even wore the armband, you probably wouldn't kick up a fuss if they were captain. Look at Darren Fletcher or Park Ji-sung. Not that Park Ji, maybe once or twice he did captain, and he's obviously not Manchester United captain material in terms of what sort of screams that. But you wouldn't have kicked up a fuss in terms of that.
No,
sort of winning
but
side.
I think it all depends on the rebuild that Erik ten Hag, produces in this off season and the start of the new. I think if with the rebuild, if you've got a good group together and you can see that there's no disharmony, it's not disjointed, and there's no drama, then I think you may get away with having a leadership group, and we understand Ronaldo's not going to play every game next season. He's turning 38 years old, so we can't expect him to play every game next season. But
we'll start on Ronaldo. We'll start on Ronaldo because I want to bring Bruno and Maguire, because I was doing a little bit of research earlier and I was put all the four in. I put David De Gea in there as well, and I was thinking how many times he captained us this season. 0. I thought Captain De Gea must have been on 5 or 10 sort of appearances as captain. He actually didn't feature as captain, so he's still in this debate, obviously. But I want to get into Bruno and Maguire because they were our two sort of, you'd say, mainstays sort of thing. But
did we have anyone else?
I don't know. maybe someone held it for a game or two, but Ian, he's saying along the lines of your thinking there, we can't have a leadership group if the club is so disjointed as per the media hype and leaks. And look, maybe even people were sort of suggesting as captain or something, maybe was sort of guilty in regards to the leaks, and that's sort of makes their case sort of null and void. But we're going to get into this one, Munsey, because I'm sure Emad and I...
Where's Borchie?
The two biggest fans of Scott McTominay. So that will definitely that'll pop up in the discussion somewhere if we are brave enough. But and look, I think there's a genuine discussion to be had around that. Now we're going to sort of obviously show both sides of the coin, but his name will pop up. So when it does, please be gentle to Matt and I in the comments. But there are a few more comments in here. Ian saying Mata was captain for a period of match. I think once or twice people off the bench sort of maybe took it here or there if someone was subbed, etc. But I do go through the stats, and Bruno and Maguire were the mainstays at captain. But we'll start on Ronaldo, and footballer and striker. You say, yep, okay, he's our captain. But obviously the limitations are, one, he's not going to be here in a year's time. Actually, to be fair, it's not guaranteed that he's going to be here in 6 weeks' time. Now, we think he might be, but there's a very good chance, or there's a chance that he won't be, but definitely a chance he won't be here in a year's time. So, well, you're just going to be having that debate in a year's time. There's no point changing it. Might as well sort of give it to the next captain to grow. The other thing is, should and will, maybe two different discussions, should Ronaldo be playing each week? Now, if you give the captaincy, you remember what happened with Gary Neville. He was the club captain. I don't think he played for a year. It was always shared around other players, but he was the club captain. Now, could you see a situation like that where Ronaldo is the captain and club captain, but it sort of is used sporadically by Erik ten Hag? Or do you think Erik ten Hag will come in and, regardless what happens in the transfer market, if he gets his way or doesn't get his way, Ronaldo will be a mainstay? Or could you see a situation where this is the season where Ronaldo accepts his body, Ten Hag sort of gets on top of the situation, and Ronaldo's game time does become limited?
Yeah, look, like I mentioned before, I don't see the issue with having the club captain. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter how many games you play. And as you mentioned with Gary Neville, he didn't play pretty much the whole season, and he was still the club captain. That's the point I was trying to make with having this leadership group. You know, regardless of how many games Ronaldo plays or not, you know, he'll be number one. You know, and you can have De Gea as 2IC, and you know, Maguire, if he's still around, third in charge, Bruno, whatever it is, whoever they are, it doesn't matter. Borchie.
Borche, I love this one, the podcast. Yeah. So if you can do a logo for us, Borche, that would be good. Me and Mad, we wearing it proud on our chest. But sort of off the back of Ronaldo, and we'll tie De Gea, because I think De Gea is in this discussion, but Munzi is saying can't have a goalkeeper or a forward as captain. It doesn't really work. Needs to be a midfielder or a defender. Now, look, Imad, off the top of my head, I agree with that. However, it really shouldn't. I've seen great teams win Champions League and titles with the striker or with a goalkeeper sort of thing. Like, it really doesn't, but football has it's like the shirt number. Number 7 doesn't play at left back. That's criminal. You don't do that. Or number 3 doesn't play up front. It means nothing. But maybe the captaincy does. Maybe in regards to, obviously, in terms of what you see on the pitch, the defensive side of things is far different to what the striker will see. So in regards to that position, a goalkeeper and a centre forward, is there something in that for you where that would impact your decision-making?
Look, throughout the season that's just gone, I read heaps on social media that goalkeepers should never be captain because they're too far away from the action. But then I always try to relate that back to Manchester United, and 80% of the games played in our 18-yard box. So De Gea's closest one to the action. So I thought he was perfect. He was a perfect candidate. I don't know. You look at great goalkeepers of the past. You know, Oliver Kahn was a captain at Bayern Munich. Yeah. Manuel Neuer, another Bayern Munich captain. You've got Peter Schmeichel, captain United for a little bit. Yeah. You got Hugo Lloris at Tottenham. You could Iker Casillas, Real Madrid. Yeah, I don't think the position matters. As long as your presence is felt, and it doesn't matter what position you're in.
Do you think De Gea has a presence? Because I think in the dressing room and his status within the dressing room there is, but there's obviously, and I think the goalkeeper's presence is sometimes people look at it different ways. People look at it as a vocal thing. Okay, is he talking? Is that presence? Or is presence coming off your line and giving a big punch up to halfway? Is that a presence? Or is the presence just a thing like Gary Neville was speaking about Cristiano Ronaldo just giving you a look? And does De Gea maybe just give someone a look?
I think as a keeper, it has to be with your voice. You have to be loud because, in relating it to that look that you were just speaking about, he can't really give the players his look. Majority of the time they've got his back to him. If you remember Peter Schmeichel, how boisterous he was, he had veins popping out of his neck, coming out of his forehead. He was ready to explode. If he had that sort of presence, and I sort of maybe picked up that he might have had that presence about him towards the end of the season as his frustrations grew, with the performances.
I just think there's a presence and that there are issues. I never really like to sort of criticize or question people in regards to how vocal they are on the pitch because I can't see on the field. I can't see watching on TV. It's hard to. I can say he's quiet or not. I don't know. I can make assumptions, but I find it hard to sort of label that at play. So he might be as quiet as a mouse. He might be as loud as Schmeichel. I don't know. I'd need the back four to tell me how De Gea communicates. But the issue, or not the issue, the benefit I'd see in his presence, why I'd say he does have a presence within the team, is his status. Like, okay, he's a Spanish goalkeeper, whatever, if he's first choice or second choice. He's Spain's goalkeeper. He's won a Premier League title at Man United, albeit far too long ago. But he's always our best performing player. Now, obviously, there was maybe a year or two ago, there was a dip in form and questions about him. But ultimately, he's been our best performing player for a long time. And I'm just thinking that will hold something in a dressing room, especially the amount of mistakes our back four has made and our midfielders make. De Gea pulls them out of shit so many times. There's going to be a respect there.
Yeah. I take your point. Again, his presence in the dressing room completely different to what's on the pitch. And I don't know, like, I don't.
And I'm not saying put De Gea as goal. I'm not saying make him captain.
No, I know
I'm just
that.
thinking there are. Yeah.
Time will tell, I suppose. But then you look at who's in front of him. I mean, is Maguire?
Yeah, we'll get to the players in front of him.
Has Maguire got that presence about him? Do you know what I mean?
And our current captain, obviously, we'll get into here now. And Adam here's saying, I just think goalkeepers are too far away from the action, if that makes sense. Well, it does make sense, but even just made the point a little bit earlier, saying all our action is just right in front of David De Gea at the moment this season. It's all in our 18-yard box. But I do take that point, Adam. And just the last point here from Sai, what if De Gea isn't first choice after a season? Well, that's the thing. I'm one of De Gea's biggest fans, and I'm not saying sell him. If Erik ten Hag wants to come in and make a new keeper or a new keeper signing, I'll disagree completely, but I'll back it 100%. I think that's a great thing. You look what Joe Hart or Pep Guardiola did with Joe Hart. I'll disagree with it. I think De Gea should be our goalkeeper. But if you do want to go down that ball planes and change it, look, Erik ten Hag's the manager and he needs to be fully back. So I would support it while completely disagreeing. But we will go to...
it's all going to center around the rebuild, Tom, and what happens in this transfer market and in the off-season. And then I think that's probably when it'll be maybe the right time to have the conversation about who the captain's going to be.
Yeah, look, it'll be interesting. Pre-season's hard to say in regards to the squads are so sort of heavily rotated. But we'll go on to, we'll tie these two in. We tied Ronaldo and De Gea into that one in regards to Ronaldo only sort of captained us once. So we were doing a bit of research. I thought it was more than that, but it was one game against Wolves and we lost 1-0. So Ronaldo had a 100% losing record. De Gea didn't captain us this season. But two players who did, and I'm going to bring up their stats here in regards to their games, Bruno Fernandes and Harry Maguire. Bruno Fernandes captained us on 11 occasions. 4 wins, 5 draws, and 2 losses. And Harry Maguire, 34 games he captained us, 16 wins. These are from the start, so starting appearances, 16 wins, 12 losses, and 6 draws. So I think what does Maguire, I think that comes to around 47%, just under half win percentage for Harry Maguire. And for Bruno Fernandes, it's 30-something, I think it was 35 or 36% in regards to his winning percentage as captain. So I'm just thinking, obviously, two very different sort of games played in regards to Harry Maguire has a far greater sample pool, obviously. However, when you do weigh up those percentages, is there anything in that, or is it just simply those are stats that mean absolutely nothing at the end of the day because, okay, who were the opposition? What was the performance like? He might have played fantastic, but let down by someone else. So do you take anything in regards to Harry Maguire technically having a better win percentage than Bruno Fernandes?
No, not really. No, for me, I don't take these numbers into account. It means nothing to me. Like you said, who was the opposition, who was in the starting lineup, who was playing alongside him. You got to take all that into account as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, look, I agree. Yeah, and it's just found those interesting because I thought Ronaldo captained us more, but Ronaldo's only captaincy was the defeat against Wolves earlier in the season. Majority is saying Ten Hag will come up with a good strategy. I think, Emad, you like his pronunciation of that. That'll be a fixture. That'll be a fixture in Man United's press conferences. But on that Bruno Maguire, we'll discuss both of them now. And we'll start on Harry Maguire because I think we actually agree on Bruno Fernandes quite a lot, but we do butt heads a little bit on Bruno Fernandes. So we'll start on Harry Maguire. I don't know where to start, though. Maybe you can tell me where to start in regards to, can he continue as captain this season off the back of this? Like, is it just clear as day, a clean slate under a new manager? Or is it just too far gone? Is someone got to pull ERIK Ten Hag aside and say, look, I understand, keep a bit of consistency, but it was beyond bad last season, just for his own good. Is there a situation where he keeps it?
Unfortunately for Harry, I think the clean slate, it's kind of hard because if you look through it, at the start of last season, the season that just passed, he's had a shocker from the get-go. So he's from his incidents in in Greece, and then it's just stemmed and spiraled out of control all the way throughout the season. And then even things that weren't his fault, like he became he was a walking meme. Things that, where was it where he scored the own goal or the ball towards the back end of the season there? It could only have come off him. Yeah. Of course, it had to hit. You know what I mean? Things were out of his control. Yeah, things were out of his control. It always just had to come back to him, and I think it's hard for him to carry on as captain. I think he really struggled with it, especially this season.
Could Harry Maguire? Could you see? I think he's going to be captain. I think in regards to the politics that happen in the Man United dressing room, unfortunately, until I see things changing, I'm going to just assume these things are going to continue. No, I think he not personally holds power, but I think an English centre back who plays for England, Man United captain, I think that does sort of have a sort of a subconscious sort of bias around the dressing room. And I'm just thinking, I think he'll keep the captaincy. It's why I think even if I don't believe this to be the case, but if ERIK Ten Hag didn't like Ronaldo's still going to stay. I could never see a situation where Ten Hag comes in and wanted to sell Ronaldo and got his wish. I think Ronaldo was going to stay regardless. I think along the same lines, Harry Maguire will stay captain. But is there a situation with Harry Maguire? Could he actually, whether this is brave of him or doesn't show leadership of him or whatever way you want to view it, could he go to ERIK Ten Hag and say, look, I'm committed to Man United. I want to move forward. I was bad not that he would say this. I was poor last season. You'd hope he would. And then say, but look, give the captaincy to someone else and just let me focus on my football. Is there a situation where he could do that? Or is this ego, which a lot of players are accused of having this ego, is that maybe a little bit too far gone and he's not really ever going to do that?
I think he would have had those opportunities this season, Tom, that had just passed. There was plenty of time, plenty of opportunities for him to go into, when Ollie was there, go into his office and say, Ollie, just take this, give it to someone else. Let me focus on my game. He could have said it to Ralph because he, probably looked worse under Ralph than he did under Ollie, to be honest. So the opportunities were there. And then I don't see him doing that because if you go back to his interview that he had before, which game was that?
Before a big game, it was the Sky Sports were trying to ring him up. It might have been a Liverpool game, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't think he doesn't think he plays bad. So
no, it's definitely. I couldn't see that happening by Maguire, but you just think, I don't know, maybe there was just a light bulb moment.
I think if he didn't do it during the season, he's definitely not going to do it in the off season.
Yeah. Well, Ian exactly saying there. Maguire coming out and saying he's getting selected each week is a clear outline. He won't say that. No, completely. Exactly. George here with a shout. Donny van der Beek. Look, obviously no, a bit tongue in cheek, but besides that, I'm sure we're going to throw Scott McTominay's name in there after the next candidate as a bit. Look, it's not tongue in cheek. There's two sides of it. The Donny van der Beek one is the case, and obviously no one's saying Donny van der Beek, but besides these obvious candidates of a De Gea, a Bruno, Ronaldo, and current captain Maguire, there isn't that outside the box like Luke Shaw or Jadon Sancho. And that's not to criticise those players, but there's not a... But I go back to that dressing room in whenever, 06 to 2010, you could go, okay, Patrice Evra, yep, Gary Neville, yep, Ferdinand, yep, Vidic, yep, Van der Sar, yep, Fletcher, yep, Scholes, yep, Carrick, yep, Giggs, Rooney, every single player would say, yeah, could be captain.
So much has been made of the lack of characters in our current squad. But then you look at the names you just rattled off, and it's
I just literally every single one of those walks into this team is captain.
Characters, easily. Yeah. But we lack that in this squad. Like, okay, Ronaldo, big character, big name player. De Gea, obviously we spoke about his presence, but he's a big player, a big name player, big character. We don't have that. We don't have the same number of characters that we used to, where the whole dressing room was just full of them. Now it's just it's a rarity. So I don't know.
Well, the last one of the main candidates in here, and this is a good reason why you're a good substitute for Larry tonight, because we obviously have a lot of discussions about Bruno Fernandes in our off time. And look, I don't want this. We could have a discussion about his football and ability and number 10, but this is obviously the captain's debate. And we've sort of rattled off all these other captains and sort of positives they bring, but also negatives they bring. Now, Bruno Fernandes, I've been saying since the moment he walked through the door, as such a big fan of Bruno Fernandes, I've always said, no, he's not a captain of Man United. He'd be the worst candidate for a captain. Like, I would hate to play, but I still like him. I still think he offers so much. But a lot of people do sort of put him down as a potential captain. And I'm sure if you had a poll, a lot of people would maybe sort of vote for him. But so I want to sort of try and direct this in regards to captaincy and not about his future going forward. But in regards to that, because the other players have flaws in their captaincy sort of suitability, Bruno Fernandes obviously does, but he has traits that the others maybe don't in regards to he's going to be playing every week, or you'd think. Now, obviously, that could change under ERIK Ten Hag, but let's assume Bruno Fernandes is going to be playing every week. You can't say that with Harry Maguire at the moment. You can't say that with Ronaldo. Is things going to change with the goalkeeping situation? Probably De Gea is going to be obviously first choice. He gets it. Now, okay, that's not enough to be Man United, but I truly think he gives his all, and that's something I can't say about other players. Now, sometimes he's given it all in terms of, sometimes it goes over the top and is a little bit stupid in terms of some of his pressing, and you think, well, he could care a little bit less and stay in position, and that would be actually more beneficial to the team. But ultimately, deep down, I think Bruno Fernandes gives 100%, which a lot of players don't. So that is something that is a huge tick in the box for me. But obviously, I think the way he plays the game, I just think that if I was a midfield partner with him, and he was telling me to do something, I'd say, hang on, you've been doing the opposite for the last 10 minutes. You sort out your own game, and I think that would potentially cause friction as a captain. So just give it your, because obviously you've got not strong views. I think deep down, as I said, we kind of agree with 90% of things on Bruno Fernandes, but just your thoughts in regards to tying him into this captaincy debate, because if you do look at the stats, he's our second captain behind Maguire.
I totally agree with you as to why he shouldn't be captain, in terms of, you know, the amount of times he gives the ball away and then having the nerve to tell someone off, you know, to pick their game up or whatever. But if you look at the way, and I'm not going to go into, you know, what I think of him as a player, because I do think he's a good player, but I think this season he's had a shocker. If you look at the way he's carried himself this season and how he's behaved on the pitch this season, for me, that's not captain material. To be getting booked almost on a weekly basis for dissent, for me, that my captain can't be doing that. I mean, to every time, the amount of times he gets kicked, rolls around on the floor for ages, then he gets up, that's right, Ian, has his tantrums, throwing his arms around, and he carries on for so long that the referee turns around and books him for dissent. Yeah. Now, look, I'll compare it. I'll just about his yellow cards, I'll compare it to Scott McTominay. The amount of people that said, how many more yellow cards is he going to get before he gets suspended? But that's Scott McTominay tackling people. That's Scott McTominay. He's not getting booked for dissent, but he's going in and whacking someone. You know, trying to win the ball back or just giving it one because that's what he wanted to do. But Bruno, imagine if Bruno was to get suspended for a couple of games for dissent. That's embarrassing.
And he's a target now because he's building a reputation, and players build reputations. You look at Ronaldo when he first came in the league, he was seen as this diver, and it sort of got kicked out of him both on the field and on the training ground. And Bruno Fernandes is developing this reputation, one, amongst the media and fans, that has also trickled down to he's pissing referees off. Now, referees, they'll go into a game with sort of clear eyes and call it down the middle, but ultimately it will sort of subconsciously play on their mind, and he does have a target on. As soon as he looks at a referee, the referee will see that as dissent, even if it's not, because he has built that reputation up over the last couple of weeks. Now, I'm going to stay on this topic, but I've just seen a quick comment here, which I'm going to bring this up at the end, Borche off topic, but the Rio Ferdinand and John Terry, I want to get everyone's thoughts on that because I completely missed it until 2 minutes before we went on air. So I'd love to get everyone's thoughts on that. But back on Bruno Fernandes in regards to captaincy there, do you think no, I don't think this would happen, but you look at Wayne Rooney, the way his sort of game changed. But some people say it didn't change. I believe it did when he was given the captaincy on a permanent basis. And I look at some of sort of Bruno Fernandes' performances, regardless of leadership. some of his best performances have come when he hasn't got an assist or he hasn't gotten a goal, where he's stayed very disciplined and he sort of moved the ball around and played short, sharp passes. And there's been his best performances, but we don't remember them because they don't have a goal or assist. And some of his worst performances, I'm talking the worst performances I've ever seen by Bruno Fernandes, he scored a double and got 2 assists. And we'll remember those as great performances because of the impact that he sort of did have. Is there a situation where Erik ten Hag sits him down and say, look, okay, I've watched you for a couple of years now, good player. Look, you can improve here in regards to these dissent things and sort of your leadership capabilities. If I give you the captain's armband, could you reel that in? Could you see a situation where you do that and Bruno Fernandes does mature, or is that taken away from his game where, as frustrating as the dissent is and all those things, if you want his goals and assists, you're going to have to let him do that. It's almost the price you pay.
But I think he has the capability of roping it in, because even last season, when he first, like his first full season, he wasn't carrying on like that. And Ollie made him captain a couple of times in some European games, and he wasn't carrying on the way he did this season. And even this season with the armband on, he was still throwing his arms around, rolling around on the floor, getting booked for dissent and those things. I think he's able to rope it in and just real harness that anger and just focus on his game. But whether or not he does it, I don't know why he's decided to carry on that way this season, because it wasn't the Bruno we saw last season.
Do you think it's off the back of, you look how frustrated we are as fans? Do you think it's, and then not that this is an excuse or it should be afforded it, but it's just off the back of how frustrating everything has been? It shows, not that it's right, but it shows that he cares, and he's showing that emotion that we all do when we're watching at the pub or watching at home. We're doing the same thing. We're throwing our arms up, maybe more at our players than the referees. Yeah. So we're showing all that dissent. We're swearing our heads off. He's just doing that. It could be an act of frustration.
It could be an act of frustration, but then is losing control of your emotions a captain's a quality of a good captain? That's another question you have to ask. Like, that's what I mean. Like, I don't want to see a captain of Manchester United getting booked for dissent and then in turn getting suspended for dissent.
Yeah,
it's not the way.
Look, I think
I'd much rather he got suspended for whacking someone for 2, and get done for 2 weeks.
Yeah. No, look, I agree with you there, but it comes back to where we sort of started this debate is, okay, we've just rattled off all those names, and we're going to have a little bit of a chat about Scott McTominay in 2 seconds. So everyone in the live chat,
give it to him now.
Get ready for that. But in regards to those candidates, who is the captain next season then? Like, if you're Erik ten Hag and you walk through the door, what do you do next season?
Learn how to say the word strategy first. And then I honestly don't know. For me, the better option would probably to have that leadership group that I spoke about earlier. But then again,
they're just those people go into that leadership group. We're still going to have the same. Okay, who's wearing the armband? I
understand, but I don't know. Maybe the dynamic for me has to change. The dynamic for me this season, there was a complete change of the dynamic, and we all saw it just turn and go south so quickly. I don't know. I've got to see what happens at the rebuild, Tom, before I can answer that. I don't know who the armband goes to. And for now, just give it to my man, Scott. That's all.
Well, we'll start on Scott. My 2 cents, I think it'll be Maguire. And there is a case. Look, I know this sounds bad. I know this sounds horrible. There's maybe a case I could make that is the right decision, given the context around the other candidates. Not that I agree with it, but I think it will be Maguire. And maybe I can see why. No, I don't agree with it, but that's how I feel in the moment. But we will touch on Scott McTominay, and Ian here agreeing with us. Obviously, good mate of ours over from Perth, Scott, nobody else. So just our bit on Scott McTominay. And there is a part of us, definitely, who we're not joking about this. Now, I think we're realistic in to know, okay, he's not going to be captain over the likes of the other people, and that potentially is right. But look, I've been on here far more often than you. So I'll let you get your thoughts across on Scott McTominay, both the footballer, pros and cons, but also into this debate. I remember a couple of weeks ago when I said, okay, Juan Mata's definitely going to be leaving the club. My next sort of agenda as a fan is pushing Scott McTominay to be captain because of what I was seeing on the pitch from other players. He was the only player I could really relate to on the pitch. And I'm thinking, well, okay.
My argument for Scott McTominay to be captain is going to be short and sweet, right? Because we're not talking about... I don't want him to be captain because of his quality as a footballer. because we all know where he lacks and what departments he lacks in. And we all know that there's players in the squad who are better than him as footballers, right? But if you go back a few podcasts, and I've heard Larry say this on here heaps of times, Bruno just gets it. So give it to Bruno. If there's anyone in this current squad that gets it, it's Scott McTominay. Like, he grew up at the club. He's been raised at the club from the academy all the way through. If anyone gets it at the club, it's Scott McTominay.
What weight do you put on?
If you want 100% a commitment from a player, the bloke's going to give you 200% if that was possible.
What weight do you put on? I remember, look, we're talking Man United captains. Obviously, the greatest captain with some people say Brian Robson. A lot of us would say Roy Keane. Yeah. So Roy Keane, greatest ever Man United captain in our sort of era. He puts a lot of weight on everyone asking what makes you a great captain, what makes great leadership, and he always comes back to the point, just be the best player. Now, was Roy Keane our best player? Some people would say yes, so probably no in regards to football, in regards to quality. There's obviously players a little bit more than Roy Keane. Not that Roy Keane wasn't a player, but that was Roy Keane's just be the best player. Scott McTominay isn't the best player in our team. Far from that, in my opinion. However, is there a case of, if you agree with Roy Keane's sentiments, who are we to disagree with Roy Keane? Is that something that is definite? Scott McTominay can't have it because he won't be the best, potentially the best player. Is that a simple?
But I've I've heard Roy Keane play down how good of a captain he was because he put it to the blokes he had around him, who made his job easier. He spoke about the likes of Brucey and Pallister, and then Yap Stam, and then you look through the midfield, Ryan Giggs, who were all good lads. He always says they were all good lads. Scholesy, Becks, Neville, the Neville brothers. They were good trainers. They were good blokes. They did the right thing by themselves and by the boys around them. So he always says they made his job easier, which made his role as captain much easier. And yes, he says, be the best player. And he probably wasn't the best player in any of the squads, to be honest, that he played a part of. But maybe he meant something like just, train to be the best player or make, maybe it was a mentality thing.
Do you think of Scott McTominay's age? Because we all say, okay, this young player coming through, and he's gone past that stage now. As obviously in Jose Mourinho's first season, Scott McTominay made his debut, so he has been around a while now. He's an experienced professional. Give him the captain's armband. Does his game change? I personally think if it was a solid decision, not that this would happen or that we're agreeing it should happen, but if Erik ten Hag says, "You're my captain, you're going to be playing every game this year if you're fit." Mm-hmm. Would it change his game? Obviously, that's not going to improve someone's first touch or their passing range. But in terms of decision-making, which is a huge part in his game that needs to be improved upon, do you think it would change his game? Or do you think it potentially look at the pressure put onto Harry Maguire? Like, how do you think Scott McTominay's mentality sort of deals with potential pressure?
In terms of mentality, I don't think it'll be an issue for him. I think he has the mentality and, the ball's about him to take on the role. But then it also comes back to his ability or lack thereof on the pitch, and I think that plays a part of it too. We can't shy away from the fact that there are massive flaws in his game, which need improvement. And you're right. Well, you mentioned his age. He's at the age now where these flaws either need to be fixed or they're not going to be, and this is just him as a player. And I know Borchia says, he hides from the ball, never offers himself, which is true. In some games, he does do that. But I've seen in other games, he presses and wins the ball back and creates chances for Ronaldo, and we get goals.
That's where I defend Scott McTominay. And my biggest criticism, regardless of his first touch or passing, my biggest criticism is him at the number 6, not showing for the ball. And a lot of people can say, "Oh, that's cowardly," or "It's not brave enough." I definitely look at it two sides of the coin, where I think it's stupid of Fred going into that area of the pitch and thinking he's Pele and losing the ball. What would you rather? You rather someone not show there, or would you rather someone show there and lose the ball? It's sort of how you view football, and that is a huge criticism I have of McTominay. However, what I would afford him, don't play him there. Play him higher up the pitch, where he played in his youth. Then let him get into the box. Let him get in the opposition box, not our box. And I think Fred was afforded that opportunity this season when Ralph Rangnick came in, because he can't be trusted in the number 6 role. He had to trust Scott McTominay because of how poor Fred is in that area. I think if we give Scott McTominay that chance, again, bring in a better midfielder, bring in a Frankie de Jong, bring in whoever Erik ten Hag wants, and ideally that puts Scott McTominay on the bench. That's where he should be for Manchester United, but it's not the case at the moment. Fred and him are our two best midfielders, whatever way you think of it, but in terms of the manager's eyes, they are. but I think Scott McTominay should be played in his preferred position. We've been having this discussion about Paul Pogba for 6 years, how to get the best out of Paul Pogba. Why can't we get the best out of Scott McTominay? Now, I'm not putting them in regards to the same quality debate, but a player's a player.
Pogba's gone through how many managers now? We still haven't found his best position. And I know you're not comparing, but I honestly thought under Ralph Rangnick that McTominay would have been unlocked, so to speak. Maybe he gets in it. Maybe why can't we afford him a clean slate under ERIK ten Hag? And give him maybe he shines under him, maybe he doesn't. And if he doesn't, so be it. And I understand, squad player at best, but you got to give the guy an opportunity to prove everyone wrong. And if he doesn't, so be it.
I just think he deserves that opportunity because he would have been the same Marcus Rashford. Yeah, give him one more chance. And look, I'm going along the lines of yes, give Marcus Rashford one more chance. Does he deserve one? Probably not. Scott McTominay does. If he's the worst player in the world, which I don't agree with, but a lot of people would throw that out there, well, he still deserves it. Okay, given what the other players have dished up, Scott McTominay does give his all, and unfortunately, that is enough at the moment because some players haven't.
Tom, I've seen McTominay with the armband on his arm once before, and I can't wait to see it again. And I'll tell you, mate, when he
scored 1-0 winner. He scored 1-0 winner against Watford in the FA Cup.
When he wears it in whatever cup competition we're in, mate, the flag's going up 100%.
Watch him wear it in Perth, in Melbourne pre-season tour, 1 of 10 Hag's first games. That'll be good.
But I'm coming for you. I'm looking for you down in Melbourne, brother.
George here saying, Scotty hides Tom with Ken. You need to see his Dora boots kicking some dude, and you knew he was on. I remember my first sponsorship was Dora. And I remember I was given a couple of pairs of Dora boots, and Roy Keane obviously being my favourite player. I thought I was the bee's knees. Dora came in and said, "How many sneakers do you want and boots?" And I sort of took a whole heap of them, and I was wearing Dora for the rest of the season. And I thought I was the next Roy Keane. Didn't quite eventuate. But Borcho, you bring up a point in regards to, that's enough captains debate. We had that for 40 minutes, Emad. We still don't know who's captain next year or who should be the next captain. I think that goes to show the situation we are in. But there are one or two sort of more talking points. And I want to get into that bit about Rio Ferdinand and John Terry because I still haven't seen what's actually happened. So if you have sort of witnessed that unfold on Twitter, please do get that in the live chat and bring me up to speed and we'll sort of finish the podcast on that. But there is obviously another football game to sort of wrap up this season, Matt. Unfortunately, Liverpool are involved. But maybe fortunately, Real Madrid are also involved in a European Cup final. If there's one team that can beat Liverpool, it is the Kings of Europe in Real Madrid. So are you looking forward to this or is you sort of maybe dreading to think, well, hang on, I think Liverpool are going to win. So how are you looking at this one?
I am dreading it. Any game that United's not playing in, I sort of hate anyway. But I don't know. It's, UEFA Champions League final, biggest game of the season. I hate the fact that they're in it. And I know...
I think it was 3 and 5 years or 4 and 5 years, they said. I forget what it is.
Something along those lines. And then you look at, City won the English Premier League. City won the English Premier League and stopped the quadruple. And now they're talking about this make-believe treble. And even though it's not the treble, it's still 3 trophies in the season. And, we finished with none. So I'm not looking forward to this game at all because they're a good team.
Do we underestimate Real Madrid? Because you look at how Real Madrid's path, and there's been games where you think maybe they didn't deserve to go through, but ultimately they have gone through, and ultimately will be the white shirts against the red in sort of that iconic European final, unfortunately. But look at Liverpool; they talk about their European record, and rightly so. They've got 6 trophies now, and they're obviously going for their 7th. And I'm just thinking, well, Real Madrid would say that's cute. What are Real Madrid on? They're on 12 or 13 sort of thing. Yeah. So I'm just thinking. Is it a case of that? Obviously, they beat them a couple of years ago in that final. Remember that Gareth Bale goal? Gareth Bale's potentially on the bench this week. Who knows if he's going to be a secret weapon? But we all sort of fear Liverpool's quality and think, okay, hang on, if they're on it, they're on it. If they're on, they're going to win. But ultimately, if Real Madrid are on it, which they usually show up on the big stage, maybe Real Madrid are just going to be too good for Liverpool.
Look, and that's the beauty of a one-off game. It's not about who finishes first and the better team all season has won the competition. It's a one-off game, so anything can happen. Liverpool on paper might be the better side, but you look at Real Madrid and what they've done in the competition so far. And I think I heard something today. They've lost more games in the Champions League this season than Liverpool or any other side. I can't remember what it was, but it's a one-off game, Tom. Anything can happen. No, I'm hoping
Unfortunately,
he's on the bench.
Unfortunately, it's 5 a.m. Well, yeah, in regards to Bale, George, he's saying Real Madrid will win, I reckon, 2-1. Bale will turn it on the bench to win if he is picked. Everyone can laugh about Bale, but he's a gun. Plus, they have Hazard too. Mention Eden Hazard. Fair dingham. I forgot Eden Hazard played. I haven't not seen... This is the first time I've seen his name in months, George. First time I've seen his name written down in months. I forgot he played. He obviously does. Maybe just there. He still plays for Real Madrid, I take it.
I know he's on their books. That's about it.
I can't believe that. What a player he was in the Premier League. I've honestly forgotten about him for months and just had to think that, does he still play for Real Madrid? What a fall from grace he's had.
Oh, big one. If you look at some of the English players that have gone from, well, not English, no, he's not English, but players who have gone from the Premier League to Spain, Real Madrid in particular, not everyone succeeded. You look at Jonathan Woodgate went and played at Real Madrid. Thomas Gravesen played at Real Madrid.
That was a good that was a good move, that Gravesen one.
That's another doppelganger for you.
he was a weird player. He was so good but so bad. I don't know what he was, whether he was brilliant or he was woeful. And I just said, he got to move to Real Madrid.
He was like that Gattuso press conference. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
But he was, and he obviously had that run in with Robinho, which I think was the end of his time. I think they chose Robinho over him. Yeah. But that Hazard one, I think, is there a case of, I remember I had this discussion with Larry a few times, Hazard always goes into this name of great Premier League players. Obviously quality player, of course. Is he a bit overrated in regards to, and I'm not saying he's been found out at Madrid. I'm assuming there's probably sort of circumstances that have impacted his time at Real Madrid, whether that be injury, I'm not quite sure, or stuff in his personal life. Who knows? But I go along the lines of thinking, yes, quality, but he's never in this bracket for me of greatest Premier League players. I think there's been far better Chelsea players.
I think in this new era that we're in of Premier League football, and I'm not talking about City's dominance or Liverpool's, rise to success and things like that. There's been the hype around players, especially in the Premier League now, is far greater than I've ever seen. And they do the same thing with managers. And I don't think he's overrated as a player. I think he's a great player. I don't think he's one of the greatest players to have graced the Premier League, but I think just the hype around him has been way over the top. And I think that's no fault of his own. That's, the press, social media, fans, they all do this. And, social media has been killing it with, you can either kill someone in social media or make them the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
But you look at Hazard's start at Real Madrid. Was it his first season? He was overweight. It looked like he was 6 months pregnant.
To be honest, that is... Look, George brings his name up there. That's the first time I've seen his month in names, genuinely. But generally, the only thing I've seen him in that Real Madrid shirt is that shot of him overweight. I can't remember a goal or seen highlights or anything. The only thing, my image of Hazard in a Real Madrid shirt is with that gut hanging over his shorts. And that's quite funny, but also quite sad.
You also think of the timing of his move to Madrid. It's not in a Galactico era. They were sort of in a rebuild stage of their own. They've lost a lot of big name players, and you look at, okay, they've got some big name players still, but those big names are on their way out. So sort of thing. So I don't know. How old is he?
I think he's quite young when he moved to the Premier League, so I assume he'd be touching around 30 now.
Around forever.
Yeah, but I think he was quite young. I think he had a few years in France at Lille, was he, before he made the move to Chelsea? So I'd assume he's early 30s maybe. Someone in the live chat can put it up. But in the live chat, Borche to the rescue, just to wrap up the podcast. Just got my phone. He sent me a few messages on Instagram in regards to this Rio Ferdinand, John Terry issue. So we'll wrap up the podcast with this. So if you have any thoughts on Rio and John Terry and this whole situation, do get them in the live chat as Ahmad and I sort of dissect it and what on earth is happening, because I love a bit of Twitter beef between ex-players or YouTubers or whatever. But Rio Ferdinand here saying the moment one has to start pushing their own records and stats, it's really time to start addressing the fragile ego. You're lucky I even put you in the top 5 after the racism case with my brother, so be thankful you made it. And John Terry replies, a fragile ego is putting yourself at number 1, Rio. Thanks for putting me in your top 5. What has happened? You told me just before we went on air, Rio Ferdinand was ranking like a top 5 Premier League defenders. Obviously, well done, Rio, putting yourself number one. Deep down, I probably agree with that. So fair play, well within his right. But John Terry wasn't happy with that. I take it.
Yeah. So Rio was doing this thing on his it wasn't on his YouTube channel. It was on some TV network over there, and he was doing like an interview with Virgil van Dijk, and they were talking about the greatest defenders of all time, and then it got to a part of the show where they were rating who the greatest Premier League defenders of all time were. And I think Rio had himself at number one, but on that list was Rio, Jaap Stam, Virgil van Dijk. I think there was another United, might have been Nemanja Vidic in there as well, and then he put John Terry in at 5th. So that's where it's all stemmed from. And then you've seen
John Terry must have Rio Ferdinand alluded to stats. Yep. John Terry must have thrown out a tweet or something talking about.
Yeah, I think he replied with a photo with a photo that he took after he retired with all the trophies, with all these trophies. There you go. Mate,
well, who do you put as number one then? And it's hard to gauge. I remember doing these, which team's better. I remember Larry and I put a combined 11 between the 99 treble winning team and the 08 treble winning team. And I still remember I listened back to a podcast a while ago, so it was just one of those generic ones. And I made a case for Patrice Evra to be over Dennis Irwin at left back. I must have just been in a French mood or something that day, because I look back at it now and think, how on earth could I put Dennis Irwin on the bench? And that's not to criticise Patrice Evra, but I do that with centre backs as well. Ask me today who I prefer, Ferdinand or Vidic. I'll say Rio today. Tomorrow, there's a very good chance I'll say Nemanja Vidic. I understand sort of they chop and change in regards to your preference, but where do you put Rio and John Terry in regards to a sort of central defensive top 5?
If it's just between them two?
Yeah, where do they sit here? You see George Rio, Vidic, Van Dijk, and Terry in 5.
For me, and like you may disagree, it's different eras of football. There's completely different eras of football. Like you go back to the 99. I'm not going to go past Jaap Stam. Jaap Stam for me best. But then you look at the era he played in. Go to Serie A and look at the defenders.
See some of the strikers.
Some of the strikers they played against.
Yeah,
it's hard to gauge, Tom. Like, okay, Van Dijk's a great defender, but he's probably a great defender of this era. But put him up against Brazilian Ronaldo, put him up against Shevchenko, Hernan Crespo. See what he does there. Batistuta. He didn't play against these players.
Yeah,
Jaap Stam played against these players. Maldini. How are you going to go past Paolo Maldini and put please? And I know he's not. And I know this was strictly a Premier League defender thing, but it was different eras of football. I can't see how anyone would think Van Dijk is the greatest Premier League defender when he never played against.
I think there's a huge part of us. I think there's a huge part of Man United fans. We don't want to give Virgil van Dijk the credit. I watch him play and think he's a rock at the back. Like he is good. But he's very good.
Be able to play in this era. I totally agree. 100%.
Oh no, definitely. I think Rio. I probably have him at the top. As I said, tomorrow I might say Nemanja Vidic, but I think Rio Ferdinand is the best one, which I think does count in regards to longevity and success. Now, can the greatest centre-back who's been playing at Southampton for 10 years or at Leicester for 10 years, can he sort of accumulate that success? No. So can he? Is that unfortunate for him? Probably yes, but I do think success plays a huge part. I don't know what the trophy haul between Terry and Ferdinand, what the difference is, but I think... I don't know who would have more trophies. That would be interesting. I'd assume off the top of my head, Rio. Would you go, Terry?
I don't know what the tally is, but
that would be very close. If anyone has time in the live chat,
I'm assuming by the tweet that Terry put out about the stats and the picture of his trophies that maybe he thinks he's got more.
Yeah, trophies. Potentially.
But
if anyone's got spare 30 seconds, throw that in the live chat. If you can weigh up the honours list, that'll be an interesting one because it could be the deciding factor. But as I said, John Terry might be down on 4 or 5, but do you think that is a part of it, which is why it's a Twitter beef, which is why it gets so emotional and sort of discussed? But do you think it's off the back of what Rio Ferdinand has alluded to, the other Ferdinand, John Terry's altercation with Anton Ferdinand, and he's brought this up, and as I said, John Terry's lucky to get into the top 5.
Yeah, I think, look, that may be because of... Look, I'm surprised he put him in since he brought up the racism issue with his brother. I'm surprised he was mentioned at all. and he could have gone down that road of not mentioning him at all, and he'd look probably, worse off for not bringing him up. So he's right in the sense that John Terry's lucky that he was actually put in the top 5, but I don't. Your success comes down to, like, where you're ranked as, what number great you are, but then the outside of football drama has sort of taken over all that. And then also John Terry was acquitted of that racism.
Well, that's the thing. His latest tweet has said that he's not guilty. It's like, well, hang on. Don't care what you found in a court of law in terms of video evidence suggested otherwise. So, look, I'm guilty for it in terms of I love a bit of Twitter beef. It's one of my guilty pleasures. One of my things I love. Did you watch the overlap with Ty and Arsenal Fan TV?
I'm halfway through it.
Have you got to the Arsenal bit with Ty?
No, not yet.
Not yet. They almost kick him out of the studio. They almost just say, Ty, you have to stop. Ty, stop it. They almost got him.
He loves a ramble, doesn't he?
But if anyone hasn't watched the overlap, please do. Not please do, but I urge you to go. It's definitely a good listen. Stephen House and Adam McCullough were there representing Man United. And speaking of YouTube, Emad is obviously on Man Cave United. It's not in at the moment, but I'll leave a link in the description. Both members from the Supporters Club, Emad and Adam, over there. Obviously chatting many things United, not just all this sort of transfer nonsense, but obviously sometimes a bit of a look back down memory lane, which is always good. So make sure you click on the link in the description, give them a follow. And Emad, almost been going an hour. Have I missed anything, Man United news? I haven't been scrolling through Twitter, so maybe something has broken.
Yeah, I haven't been. I've been trying to stay away from social media for a bit. Been doing my head in, and I've been getting in trouble.
There's plenty of time for that next season, mate. Plenty of time for that next season.
I know. No, I think we've covered pretty much everything. We're still no closer to finding out who the captain is, and we haven't decided in here.
Well, I think that is why we started it, because there is just no answer. There's no right answer. Right, yeah. And
only time will tell, Tom. And then whoever ERIK picks, I think we're just going to have to shut up and put up with it and just, I don't know.
Well, it is part of it. Well, whatever he does, even if, look, I'll go back to the David De Gea thing. If he wants to, I don't think this will be the case. If he wants to sell David De Gea, I think it's the wrong decision. I would love to see it and completely back him. Okay, he's putting his foot down and put his own sort of stamp on things. And I think that is, whatever the decision is made, needs to be fully backed. Eric here saying, good evening, fellas. Wish we could skip the summer window signing to get straight to it, only if we had a good summer window. Time will tell. Fingers crossed we do. I think off the back of this, let's say Liverpool win tomorrow. Fingers crossed they don't. But let's say they do. Could you see United...
Sunday morning for us?
Sunday morning.
Okay.
So it's about a bit over 24 hours. Saturday night for us, Sunday morning. But do you think there is a situation where United then hit the PR machine and say, look, Liverpool's going to be back page news now. Can we unveil a sign-in or announce a sign-in to get back on everyone's good books? Could you see a situation where United accelerate their business if things go in the favour of the Scousers on the weekend?
Look, I don't think the result matters. I think United have to start, speeding up that business, now. If you look at the way other clubs are acting, they're already announcing signings and unveiling signings and.
I think it's still very early. We're very frustrated, but it's still the season finished a couple of days ago. Like, if we announce 2 signings in a week's time, that's still very early. Like, it's
understandable. But you look at the likes of City announcing, Haaland before the season was done.
Yeah.
Liverpool, I think, signed... Who'd they sign? A championship player.
Yeah.
Fulham.
And also on the overlap, they make a very good point. They signed Ruben Diaz. Not Ruben Diaz, Luis Diaz. They signed him in January. That's part of moving forward. So, hopefully United do get their act together. But Ian just reminded us here, put up a little bit earlier, but the trophies, obviously 6 league titles to John Terry's 3. So John Terry can go have a bit of a cry on Twitter. Rio Ferdinand is the best centre-back the Premier League has seen. But hopefully everyone did enjoy that. Something a little bit casual with good mate Emad on a Friday night over a drink. Hopefully everyone in the live chat got something out of it. Not that we gave you an answer on who should be the captain. But, do appreciate everyone's support. Saying Liverpool win, United announce new owners. I'll take that now. Yeah, look, I'm not fussed about Liverpool's European record. They've got more than us anyway, so it'll be nice to see them lose as long as they didn't close that gap in the English Premier League titles. That's what I was mainly concerned about. So, obviously, Hala Madrid this weekend, but if Liverpool win, what is it? we move forward.
Can they sign Sergio Ramos for just a one-off game?
Just bring him out as one of the mascots, Marcelo's mascot or something. Does Marcelo still play for? I think he does.
I don't know. I just want to see. I want to see him rip out Salah's shoulder, and that's about it. And then you can sub him.
I would like to see Salah leave the pitch in tears, and obviously sad tears. This, not that I wish ill on anyone, but I would like to see him cry for all the wrong reasons this week.
You're a better man than me, Tom, because I wish ill on all those. I hope Van Dijk does his ACL, Henderson breaks an ankle, and Salah pops a shoulder, and then Madrid slap him 3-0.
I wouldn't say no to that. I wouldn't say no to that, Emad. Just before we wrap up here, Eric saying, can I join your supporters club? Since I live in the US, I don't need anything shipped to me, but just to support. If you send us a message, one or two people do are joined from the supporters club who don't live here in Sydney. So feel free to drop us a message if I don't get back to you, and I can sort of talk your way around that and how you can show your support. But I do appreciate that, mate. Hope you are keeping well all the way in the US. So hopefully everyone did enjoy that. Please do leave a like on the video. That would be great. If you are new, if you could subscribe, that would be great as we edge closer to 1,000 subscribers. And I don't know when we'll be back. Hopefully we'll be back maybe discussing a Real Madrid win and maybe a Man United sign-in. Hey, Matt.
Hopefully.
In the world of Man United, hopefully is all we have. But until then, hope everyone has a good weekend. Ala Madrid. And no, pleasure. As I said, make sure in the live chat or in the description below, I'll leave a link to Man Cave United. Emad and Adam, good mates of ours, are on there. And everyone have a good weekend, and we'll chat to you when we chat to you. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.